you, Mr. Chairman. Ironically, it was right after I got here, Senator Warner and I had a discussion about what is that level of government spending at the federal level that would be acceptable to his side of the aisle. He always referred to the Europeans. I want to cite a couple statistics. On our revenue side, if you go back 50 years, we average 17 to 18% of our GDP. High rates, we have lower economic growth. Low rates, like pre-COVID through the Trump tax cuts, we had better economic growth. But it's almost immutable that we're there. This budget, I think, is at 25% of current GDP. I mean, that's a quantum leap even above the European model. And you've got record taxes embedded into it as well. And I got several questions for you, so please keep them as short as you can. Do you have an ideal rate that you'd like to see the federal government as a percentage of our GDP?
Revenues or debt?
Spending.
We believe as long as you are putting forward proposals to pay for that spending, we shouldn't look at the percentage of GDP, but you should pay for your proposals.
So you're willing to go to a European level of where government would get that much larger and try to force the system to pay a tax rate that it's never been able to do in past history to support it?
We believe we should invest in the American people. As a percent of GDP, non-defense, we talked about a lot, remains below the historic GDP level.
And I think we all do too. It's just that you can't do it on this paradigm. It goes broke in the long run. Do you know what interest rates were roughly back in 1978, say for a home mortgage?
I was one, so you'll excuse me if I don't remember that.
You wouldn't remember it. That's true. I'll tell you, it was 10%. And early into the 80s, they got up to right under 20%. And that was due to the evil that's been unleashed, inflation currently. It took interest rates into that level to get inflation back to where you take the tax that robs everyone back in order. That is something that we need to be concerned about because currently we're at 8%, and even pre-COVID, we were at 2.5%. It was stable, and that's something we need to be worried about. Where do you think when it comes to the size of not the revenue side, which we've talked about, on spending, do you think that it needs to be reprioritized in any way? Because currently this budget is calling for, I think, a 14% increase on domestic spending, only 4% on defense.
Thank you so much.
Which seems out of proportion.
Thank you for that. I'll remind everyone the non-defense side includes our commitment to our veterans, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security. There are absolutely critical security, the State Department, critical security elements in the non-defense side.
So I think then, with the short amount of time we have left, it comes back to the theme of what I think Senator Romney was talking about in many. For as many people in my short time here that come to the federal government expect it to have its house in order. And when you're proposing something that would go way beyond, I think, what most other senators on the other side of the aisle would think that is sustainable, a federal government, 25% of our GDP, how do you think we can do that, be there for all the people that do look to it, when you got like the Medicare Trust Fund that completely goes bust here in 4.5 years? Social Security, which we've actuarially known, the same thing paying into since the Depression era, here in about 11 years. How does that all work out to where any of this will be there for the people that need it the most down the road?
Senator, we may disagree on how the president wants to pay for his proposals, but he believed the way to deal with this is to invest in the American people while also asking the wealthiest in corporations, many of who don't pay any tax in 2020, to pay at least what firefighters, nurses, and teachers pay as a part of their tax income.
So in summary then, I think it looks like he thinks the solution long term is to change our economy into one driven by the federal government that's going to be larger than even the European economies that at least balance their budgets. And you're going in the face of historical data that we're the unique system where we generate the most prosperity of any country, and there's no arguing about it. It needs to be looked at who's benefiting from it. would share a lot of ideas, I think, that would be similar in terms of trying to make that more broadly felt. It runs the system into the ditch in the long run because it defies history and that you'll never be able to pay for it. And to me, that's a bad plan. Thank you.
Director Young, good to have you with